Vivek Ramaswamy is a graduate of both Harvard and Yale. He's the founder and former CEO of a multi-billion-dollar biotech company. But now he's sounding the alarm on corporate America. He says woke politics are being exploited for profit. He's got a brand new book. It is a blockbusting bestseller. In fact, opened up at number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list in its first week on the market. It's a phenomenal book. It's called Woke Inc. Inside Corporate America's Social Justice Scam. Please welcome to the show an amazing person, Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, this is an incredible book, and you've had the guts to write about the fact that corporate America has basically sold out, but they're hypocrites about this. They say they're, all into social justice and stopping racism, but most of those corporate boards are all a bunch of white people.
Well, I think it's even worse than that, Mike. Corporate America has just turned its back on America. They pretend like they care about something other than profit and power, precisely to gain more of each. And it's not just the hypocrisy, though, that bothers me. It is the fact that that is now wreaking havoc on American democracy, because it says that a small group of investors and CEOs get to determine what our views on racial equity ought to be, or what our views on climate change ought to be, when in fact, those are the questions that we're supposed to settle in our democracy, where everyone's voice counts equally. And so I think corporate America wants to put us into demographic boxes, but we don't have to stay there. And that's what this book's all about.
One of the things that amazes me, I mean, you're a very successful CEO. You've started up companies that have been wildly successful. You've got Harvard and Yale degrees. Honestly, you don't need to take on the whole corporate world by writing a book like this, because you're ticking off a lot of people. Why'd you do it?
Well, I'm ticking off a lot of people. That's true. Look, I had the privilege of building a multi-billion-dollar biotech company. My parents came to this country with almost no money. I have lived the full arc of the American dream. And I think there's now a new secular religion that really threatens to kill that dream. That is woke culture. It says that who you are or what you can achieve is actually determined on the day you're born by your race, your gender, and your sexual orientation, full stop. It says that if you're black, you're inherently disadvantaged, that if you're white, you're inherently privileged. And to me, that is the caste system.
Yeah.
That used to exist in India. That's not what's supposed to exist here in the United States. And so I felt like if I had had the privilege of living the full arc of that dream, then if there was a new virus that was going to threaten to kill that dream, somebody had to really step up from the inside, not as a journalist writing from the outside, but from the inside, who's lived in elite America. I wasn't born into elite America, but I've lived in it for the last 15 years, and I really needed to sound the alarm, because I think once the American people see what's going on with clear eyes, that's the first step to a solution.
I got to tell you, Vivek, one of the things that I love the most about the book is that it's written so that anybody can understand it. This is not a book that's written for the academics,
No.
In the halls of Harvard or Yale. It's written for just ordinary people who want to know what the heck is happening with companies. Here's an example. Not long ago, a few weeks ago, American Express came out. They started doing these seminars and saying that it was horrible to have a profit mindset and to make so much money. And I'm thinking, well, maybe they could just refund all the money I've paid them for my platinum card. I mean, how crazy. They said capitalism basically was a curse.
Well, it's with the word they exactly used is really telling. They said capitalism is racist. And you and I both know there is no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is these companies are blowing woke smoke to prevent you from seeing what their actual business practice. It's true. It's what they're doing. And the first commandment of woke capitalism is this: the more ruthless your business is, the more woke you have to act. So American Express over the last year, this is a little known fact, has been under investigation by the DOJ for defrauding small businesses across this country through rampant lying, allegedly sending cards to businesses that never requested one, charging fees for it. Well, guess what? If you've been accused of rampant fraud across the country, defrauding small businesses, the best way is to actually now apologize for that, not by owning your own sins, but by claiming that capitalism is racist. And so that is actually the strategy that these companies play. It's like a verbal game of jujitsu. They've learned that they can make money by critiquing themselves. And I'm sorry to say that it's working. It's a grand bargain with the new Democratic Party to say that if we say the right things, the woke catechism that you want us to recite, then you stay away and you don't really hold us accountable. And that's how they put Occupy Wall Street. We don't even remember what that was. That's how they put it up for adoption, by adopting these woke values instead.
This is really crazy, though. When I think about what happened a few months ago in Atlanta, and Coca-Cola, as I like to call them, decided that they weren't going to have anything to do with the All-Star game, and that somehow that the Georgia voting law was racist, even though it was more generous in voting access than Delaware, where Joe Biden is from, and Colorado, where they moved the game, which is a very white state, unlike Georgia. Here's what I don't understand. Corporate boards are going along with this stuff.
They are.
Now, these aren't stupid people. These are highly educated, very successful people in order to be on the board of a Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, or American Express. Why are they doing it?
So that you're right. They're not dumb. This is an arranged marriage, but it is not an arranged marriage of love. It is more like mutual prostitution. And the way it works is that you effectively...
That's a great idea.
It's really true. And if I'm to go on, I think the illegitimate child of that act is the woke industrial complex, which is a new monster that's far more threatening than either big business or big government alone, because it can do what neither one can do on its own. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
They say that we're just private companies removing what does and doesn't show up on our website. You know what I say? If you're actually behaving as a private company, I'm okay with that. But guess what? These guys aren't behaving as private companies. They're working hand in glove with government, with big liberal government, to be able to say that we're going to take down hate speech or misinformation as the party in power defines it. And the party in power can't do it because we have this thing called the Constitution that prevents the government from engaging in censorship. So they delegate their dirty work to Silicon Valley. But these guys don't do it for free. You see, their new ask is a quiet ask to the new Democratic Party to say that you better look the other way when it comes to leaving our monopoly power intact. And I'm sorry to say, it is working masterfully for both sides. Same thing with Wall Street after 2008. You don't love Occupy Wall Street? Well, a bunch of big banks get in bed with a bunch of woke millennials. Together, they birth woke capitalism, and then they put Occupy Wall Street up for adoption. And so Coca-Cola, these companies are really just copycats. They're just getting in on the act, where you'd rather talk about voting laws in Georgia or teach your employees how to be less white, something that Coca-Cola did this year as well. But that's a lot easier to do than to contend with your own product's impact on the nationwide epidemic of diabetes, including in the black community that they profess to care so much about.
Wow.
So that's how this game is played.
Wow. Nobody I've ever heard explained it so just succinctly and brilliantly as you just did. That makes more sense. And it also explains why banks would go around saying they don't believe in capitalism. The very banks that have redlined African-American homeowners not being able to get loans to move into neighborhoods where all the white people live.
It's really a joke. So Goldman Sachs, I'm talking about banks. Goldman Sachs, by the way, I did a summer internship there back in 2006. I tell some of those stories in the book. Last year, declares from the mountaintops of Davos. That's where a lot of these things tend to take place.
Because that's a real middle-class
environment.
Oh, yeah,
they love it. They fly their private jet to muse about the racially disparate impact of climate change. That's what these guys do. But the Goldman Sachs declares from the mountaintops of Davos that they will not take a company public in the United States unless its board is sufficiently diverse. And they don't mean politically diverse or ideologically diverse. They mean diverse in the way that it actually looks. Now, here's the trick. Who was the presidential frontrunner last January when they made these declarations? Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And you see, if you're Goldman Sachs, your historical practice was make campaign contributions, put your alumnus in the seat of U.S. Treasury Secretary. Pretty good trick.
Yeah.
That works even amongst Republicans, by the way, for decades. But now, that might not have worked with Bernie Sanders. That might not work with Elizabeth Warren. So what you do is you tithe in a new currency to the new temple. And I do think it's a religion.
Yeah.
You tithe to the new temple of identity politics. And that's how the new crony capitalist game works, is you then do favors to the government to expect favors in return, especially with a newly ascendant woke left. That's how these guys are playing the system. And I'll tell you, there's some things I write about in this book that certainly made my blood boil. It'll probably make your blood boil too. Is after the 2008 crisis, the Obama administration says they settle with big banks for tens of billions of dollars. Guess how much of that got paid to the public fisc? Less than half. You want to know why? They wanted to fund a lot of woke left nonprofits like La Raza or the National Urban League. They couldn't do it through Congress. So they went to the DOJ and said, actually, guys in the big banks, let's get in the back room. If you give $1 to those organizations that Congress wouldn't fund, we'll give you more than a one-for-one offset. You get $2 off on what you owe the public. You get a tax deduction. Your press release can say you gave to a nonprofit instead of to the DOJ. everyone's happy, but the American people are the ones who lose.
I was going to say,
that's crony capitalism at its worst.
All of us here tonight, we paid for that.
We paid for that.
With our tax dollars. Listen, your book is absolutely, look, I've read it. I highly recommend it. It's the best explanation to help people understand what in the world has happened to this country and the companies that used to be trusted companies. I hope people get it. Obviously, people are loving it. It's started #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. Vivek Ramaswamy, I want to say thank you tonight for coming. And for our audience, you're going to want to pick up the book. It's called Woke Inc., anywhere books are sold. You can follow Vivek on Twitter